Okay, so what's going on, everybody? This is Steel Jedi here, and today I'm just doing a response video in terms of if anybody saw Voch Lombardi's recent mock draft. First and foremost, I want to give a shout out to him. I've been following him for about a year and a half to 2 years now, and I have the utmost respect for him. He gave me a challenge in terms of why I would pick Obi Melifonwu over Charles Harris in the first round. And so today I just want to address a few things on why I would pick Obi over Charles. First and foremost, look at what happened with the Pittsburgh Steelers in the AFC Championship game against the New England Patriots. What is the most glaring issue with that game? The most glaring issue, in my opinion, is the secondary. Our secondary let up 300 receiving yards between two players, Chris Hogan and Edelman. Now, I could see a lot of receiving yards from Edelman, but on the other hand, I really do not think that Hogan should have had that many yards against us. So, in my opinion, secondary is at the forefront on what we need to address in this year's draft. And in my opinion, I think Obi Melifonwu was a top 15 pick. You look at his measurables, and I have the measurables from the combine right here. Let me just pull them up quick. So he is, I believe, he was 6'4". Oh, where is it? Important files. Let me just do this. Combine. Okay, so here. It's opening now. Sorry, it was taking a while to open. So here are the measurements from the combine. He's 6'4", 224 pounds, had 9 1/8 inch hands, 32.5-inch arm span. He put up 17 reps on the bench press. He had a 44-inch vert, an 11.9 broad, and he ran a 4.46 and a 4.4 flat 40. For those were the two unofficial times. And the reason why I bring up the unofficial times is because it doesn't matter what the TV says. It's how the coaches itself are clocking them at the end of the day, because that's who's really putting the name on the card to be drafted. So regardless, let's get into more along the lines of the on-the-field attributes. I think Obi Melifonwu can come in day one and start over Mike Mitchell. Mike Mitchell is a liability on our defense, and I think he would be the perfect pairing up with Sean Davis. Now, another nice thing about Obi Melifonwu that you have, and he's a guy that you can bring in and will change your secondary around that year just by drafting him into the defense. He could also come down and play corner like he did at UConn. He reminds me a lot of a fellow UConn player that got drafted by your Dallas Cowboys, Voch, and Byron Jones. Now, with those kind of measurables and those kind of on the field and workout stats. I know stats aren't everything, but you put on the tape for Obi Melifonwu and he is flying around the field. He has zero issues with tackling. His cover techniques are pristine. His hips are a little bit tight, but that's because he played safety for most of his career at UConn. He has zero off the field issues. And on top of all of that, he's probably one of the smartest secondary players I have seen in the game since Troy Polamalu. You bring him in, and the Pittsburgh Steelers can find a place for him. Personally, I would play him at free safety opposite of Sean Davis, but they may even put him down at corner because, in my opinion, Ross Cockrell is not the answer. I think Ross Cockrell is a bust, and I hate when people say that he's a lockdown corner. Now, addressing Charles Harris. I do like Charles Harris, but I think in the Pittsburgh Steelers' eyes, the outside linebacker core that they have right now with James Harrison, Bud Dupree, and Anthony Chicklow would be able to be okay to start the year. No matter who you drafted outside linebacker, he's going to be worked in a rotation. So with the deep, and I mean deep, outside linebacker core in this year's NFL draft, I think you go after a secondary player round one, whether it be corner or safety. Personally, I would go safety at Obi Melifonwu, but you can come back in the second round. And I think a guy like Derek Rivers, as mentioned after my call by another caller, could potentially drop into the second round. Right there, you have a guy who had outstanding stats. Granted, he played at Youngstown State, but you look at the year or last year when we drafted a guy by the name of Javon Hargrave in the third round. He had crazy stats at South Carolina State, came into the league and really took over for that 0-1 tech for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then when Cam Hayward got hurt, he stepped in for him, and he really showed good improvement throughout the course of the year. So I think if you bring in Obi Melifonwu in the first round, and you bring in an outside linebacker like a Derek Rivers in the second, right there you have fixed two of the biggest issues on your Pittsburgh Steelers defense. So another reason why I do not necessarily want Charles Harris, and I like Harris's pass rush moves, but my issue with him is that I feel as though he would probably be better fit in a 4-3 system with his hand in the dirt than he would be standing up. So if you look at his stats, and I know stats aren't everything, like you said, you just look at his 2014 freshman year, he had 2 sacks. Then he jumped up to 7 sacks in 2015 and 9 sacks in 2016. Those are decent numbers, but I even have a feeling that, in my opinion, Charles Harris can drop into the second round. Not saying we would pick him up. I just don't think he's a first round talent. So that's my response for you, Voch. Like I said, everybody go subscribe him up, like his videos. He really does some pretty outstanding film breakdown out of a bunch of the big name players, and he knows what he's talking about. So that's why I respect his decision. And if we do draft Charles Harris, I wouldn't be really that upset with it. I just think there are better players out there, like an Obi Melifonwu, that could really come in and change this defense around and get us one game better to take us to the promised land, take us to those 7 Lombardis. So that's my video. Go ahead, check them out. Like, comment, subscribe, and may the steel be with you.